Right now, activists online are urging people to participate in a nationwide economic blackout today. We're hearing from a local pastor about a similar effort, his take on why he's targeting Target. Plus, the FDA calls off a critical meeting on flu vaccines. Do we need to be concerned about the number of shots available next season? We're going to talk to a local doctor and find out. And with grocery prices rising, we're taking a look at some clever ways to save. Let's get it. This is The Take. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we invite experts on to get their take on their insight on the headlines that are happening today. Let's get our top story today. One group is calling for a 24-hour economic blackout all across the country. The People's Union is asking people not to spend money today. The group says it has no political affiliation, but is fighting against corporate greed and economic exploitation. The move is similar to a local effort to protest the company's rolling back diversity, equality, and inclusion policies. Pastor Jamal Bryant at New Birth Missionary Baptist Church is leading a 40-day fast against Target, and he plans to do this for more companies in the future. This is his message to Target and other corporations.
African Americans have $2 trillion worth of spending power. We are the 12th wealthiest nation in the world, exceeding places like Switzerland and Norway and Iceland. And that we ought to be looked at as consumer partners that we are. We're not looking for a favor, we're looking for respectability. And corporations are not showing us that.
He says he's hoping to get 100,000 supporters by Wednesday. We did reach out to Target to get the company's take, but we haven't heard back from them as of yet. If you want to watch the full conversation with Pastor Bryant, you can do so right here on 11Alive Plus. Just go to the home screen and you'll be directed to do so. Let's talk about our other big story. It's been almost a week since a deadly shooting at a hostage situation at a hospital in Pennsylvania. One officer was killed, 2 other officers and 3 employees at UPMC Medical were injured. What's happening in Pennsylvania is igniting a conversation about violence against healthcare workers all across the country. Joining me now to talk about solutions is the Chief Government Relations Officer for the Georgia Hospital Association, Anna Adams. Anna, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get to the first get your take on this. The Bureau of Labor statistics say that hospital workers suffer non-fatal workplace violence at a rate that's 5 times more than the national average. What's your reaction when you hear numbers like that?
It's incredibly concerning. We're asking these healthcare workers to come into our hospital setting. They're caring for patients. They have nurturing personalities, and each day they show up to work, they have no idea whether or not their life is going to be in danger. And we want to make sure they feel protected.
Absolutely. Here's a situation that hit a little closer to home. You may recall in 2023, a gunman opened fire inside of a waiting room at Northside Medical Building in Midtown, killing 1 woman and injuring others. Shortly after that, the governor signed a Safer Hospitals Act, which lets hospitals create their own policy force to set harsher penalties for people convicted of assault against healthcare workers. Do you know of any hospitals here in Georgia that have created their own policies?
We do have several hospitals in the state that have already taken advantage of this law. Not all the facilities, though, in Georgia have the resources to be able to do this yet. And so since the law is fairly new, we are looking for funding opportunities at the local level, at the state level, to make sure that hospitals can respond in an appropriate amount of time. There's all kinds of new technology that hospitals are investing in addition to these police forces. So we're trying to get creative.
Talk to me about those policies. Are they still working? I mean, have they shown to be effective?
I think so. And I think one of the most important things about having these police officers on your campus is just the response time. In a situation where law enforcement has to be called in, they obviously have other responsibilities within the city, and every second counts when you have a situation like this. So to the extent that they can have these staff members present and quickly ready to respond, I think every minute saves lives. So
it's the funding that's holding some of the other ones back, right? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think having that funding mechanism in place to make sure that they can hire these staff members, they can train them. They're also utilizing some other interesting technology, which are duress devices that nurses can wear around their neck to press a button to ensure that they have that response time locally and that their staff members at the hospital can respond and help them when they're in a situation where they're experiencing violence.
Is the Georgia Association advocating for other means of protecting some of our healthcare workers?
We are working both at the state and federal level to make sure that those penalties for patients and patient family members, really anyone in a healthcare setting, who commits violence is certainly being penalized to the full extent of the law. And that applies not just to frontline healthcare workers, but everyone in the hospital setting. There has been some movement recently at the congressional level, and we'll continue advocating for that.
You know, this is a scary thing to hear about, people going into hospitals and shooting and things like that. You know, how often, Anna, talk to us about how often this happens here in our state. Do you know that?
Well, it's hard to tell, but I did see a statistic recently that up to 40% of nurses have reported experiencing violence, physical violence at some point in their career. The question that I have really, though, is how many are underreported. Sometimes patients, when they're in pain or experiencing a psychiatric issue, experience different levels of violence, or maybe they're afraid. And so nurses, I think, at some point feel like this is a part of their job. But where it really gets concerning is when they express that physical violence and cause these nurses harm in a way that they can no longer return to work, or they're afraid to return to work. Yeah, so I think it's probably underreported. Yeah,
I'm not as well-rounded in the health field industry as you are. I know that there's certain things about patients you can't report. Do you think that's also helping to hold them back from reporting some of these incidents?
I think many of these nurses just feel compassion for their patients, and they try to meet them where they are. They see that they're experiencing pain. I think there's also some level of fear of retaliation, especially for those patients that make threats but haven't followed through with that yet. So the reporting can be daunting.
Right. Okay. Well, Anna, really appreciate you joining us. Welcome to the show, and thanks for being with us. I'm sure we're going to invite you back for more.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks a lot. Anna Adams. All right, let's take a look at our forecast for today, folks, and it is a nice one, not as warm as we have been, but it will be a pleasant day for us. We are looking at temperatures around 70 degrees for today and tomorrow. Start of the weekend, we'll have mostly sunny skies all weekend long. Now, you'll notice a difference on Sunday. Notice that temperature drops off a bit, down to 57 degrees for the high temperature on Sunday. What's that? Well, a cold front will be moving through the area. We'll usher in some cooler air, just reinforce that cooler air. We'll stay in the 50s as we head into Monday, and then gradually warm back up as we head through the week. Now, our next best chance for the rain won't come until the middle of next week. Got another front that's going to come through. That'll bring in a little extra moisture for us. Right now, it looks to be a good chance for that rain. There could be a couple thunderstorms associated with it as well. We're going to watch that cold front move through. Temperatures will get up to about 72 degrees, back down to the 50s as we head into Thursday. So we're going to up and down as we get closer to spring, folks. That's that fight between the cold air and the warm air, and we'll be battling it and going through these roller coaster temperatures until we can settle in that warm air. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're back right after this. What are your plans for this weekend? Hopefully it's a chance to get outside and enjoy some recreation and get some vitamin D, as we'll have plenty of sunshine around starting today. Looking at temperatures getting up close to the 70-degree mark. We've been well into the 70s as of late, but we had that cold front move through yesterday. Brought us the clouds for the most part. Some of us got a sprinkle or two, but it's just reinforcing some cooler air moving into the area. Now, still above our average. We should be around 60, and so 70 is good. We'll hold on to that as we start on Saturday, and then by Sunday, that weather cools back down, back to 57 degrees for an afternoon high. All right, the Ukraine president is expected to be in Washington today for a high-stakes meeting with President Donald Trump. This will be their first meeting since the U.S. started negotiations with Russia to end the war in Ukraine. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr, who's been covering politics for years. Alice, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Chesley, good to see you.
All right, then we're going to focus on the meeting between these two powerhouses here. We're looking at the potential deal over Ukraine's rare earth minerals. That has been a big sticking point. What are both sides hoping to walk away with today?
Right. So President Zelensky at this point is expected to sign this agreement. And what President Trump is looking for is revenue from rare earth minerals that are rich in Ukraine. And it's the kind of thing that can be used in technology, very important kinds of materials for emerging technologies as well as weapons systems. So there's some sort of arrangement that has been reached whereby Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky would agree to sign over some revenue from those rare earth minerals in exchange for some form of security guarantees. And this is what is really important to Zelensky and to Ukraine. But it's also kind of murky at this point because President Trump has repeatedly said that he wants Europe to take the lead in security guarantees, meaning some sort of arrangement whereby Europe, maybe the U.S., would back them up, would say that we will protect you. We will have your back should Vladimir Putin decide to just go ahead and invade again if there is a security deal reached here. And that is something that we've heard from a number of people. I spoke with a Ukrainian human rights lawyer who says, Putin has much broader ambitions for what he wants to do in Ukraine and potentially beyond, and that in order to have peace, it has to be an enduring peace that makes sure that there's some kind of backup to prevent him from just going back in.
Well, Alice, we know that the tension between these two haven't been great. And yesterday you and I talked about the meeting that President Trump had with the British Prime Minister, and he seemed to be softening his tone just a little bit. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it was interesting because, there was this kind of back and forth into the lead up to this meeting, a lot of baggage coming in today. And we heard specifically President Trump kind of raising alarm among allies by falsely suggesting that Ukraine started the war that certainly Russia began by invading a sovereign neighbor, invading Ukraine. And President Zelensky called out that comment from President Trump as Russian disinformation. That then sort of prompted President Trump calling democratically elected Zelensky a dictator. And then just yesterday, when he was meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he was asked by a reporter about whether he still thinks that Zelensky is a dictator. And he said, "Did I say that? I can't believe I said that." Next question. So just moved on from there. He certainly didn't own the statement on the spot. And so that was a softening. And he did say, that he and Zelensky have had a good relationship. It's gone on for years now. They're kind of back and forth, and overall they have had a good tone. It's just been this bubble right here where President Trump began the negotiations with Russia. Ukraine has been trying to make sure that it gets its seat at the table, and it's been a little bit bumpy here leading up to today.
All right, can't wait to hear what comes out of this meeting. It seems like something always new every day coming out of this administration. Is there anything we should be looking forward to today?
Yeah, this certainly is taking up a lot of the air today, but there also continues to be, of course, large-scale firings and a lot of concern around that. And there was a new ruling out of California just overnight that temporarily at least blocked new firings of probationary workers and ordered the Trump administration to rescind a memo directing mass layoffs. This does not apply, as we understand it, to probationary employees who were already dismissed, but this judge called the firings illegal and said that the Office of Personnel Management that's been sending out a lot of these notices has no power rightly to be doing what it's been doing. So that's sure to be appealed, and we'll watch that from there.
All right, NBC's Alice Barr, thanks for your insight. As always, have a great weekend.
You too.
All right. This week, the FDA canceled an important meeting without warning. Experts were supposed to get together to talk about the next upcoming strand for the flu season's flu shot. Joining me now to talk about this important impact of this meeting, Dr. Sujatha Reddy. Dr. Reddy, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thanks, Chesley. Nice to be with you.
All right. Tell us why this meeting is so important.
Yeah, so every year they have this meeting to evaluate worldwide what flu strains were prevalent. And usually we look at the southern hemisphere because their winter is when our summer is. So their flu season comes before ours. So usually they look at what flu strains were prominent there, and then they decide what flu strains need to be in that year's flu vaccine. So it's a very important meeting.
Can the FDA advance the flu vaccine without the meeting?
So you could use the same flu strains as last year, but to get the most accurate one, you really need to have the meeting or have some body, meaning a body of people, determine what flu strains should be included in the coming year's flu vaccine. And so that's important to know. You don't want to just guess per se.
Yeah. So if we rolled out the one from last year, obviously it may not be as strong. I think that's what you're saying, right? So it may not be effective.
Yeah.
Is that the impact of not having the meeting?
So I think right now the impact is, when are they going to have the meeting? This is the way it's been done. It's a group of people that get together. There's actually a couple of ways they do it. The WHO also has some impact onto what flu strains they recommend covering around the world. So there's two bodies that really kind of determine it. In the US, obviously, it's the FDA, and with a lot of input from the CDC. I think right now our political climate, the government is going through some things. There's lots of changes. I think there's a lot of concern because our current Health and Human Services Secretary obviously had in the past mentioned some, being not pro-vaccine. I really don't think that's what this is about. It may be a personnel thing. The concern, though, is, I think what you're asking, is that it takes about 6 months for pharmaceutical companies, once they know what flu strains we're trying to protect the public against, it takes about 6 months to generate enough vaccine to cover the population. And that's where we may be running into a deadline.
So what would be that deadline, you think? This was supposed to be scheduled for next month. They canceled that one. How much wiggle room do we have in there?
Not a ton, because we like to get the flu vaccine out by September, October. So if you backtrack 6 months, we're talking March, April. So, it is sort of a crunch time, but this is the usual time they do it, because by now we kind of know what flu strains we protected against last year, what % of the population got vaccinated, what flu strains were prevalent in the Southern Hemisphere. So all that data is now coming out. And so, I think we have a little bit of time, but definitely not months and months.
Quickly, want to ask you about the bigger picture here. We know that this month, the federal health office officials also postponed the CDC Vaccine Advisory Committee meeting. What does this mean as far as those shifts in normal procedures?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a concern. Is this a political, fallout from, letting federal workers go? And they're not saying anything much. They just say it's canceled. I know some of the committee members have expressed concern because they didn't say postpone, they just canceled the meeting. So, we could read a lot into it. I'm hoping it's just a temporary thing, but, obviously we have the right to be a little concerned, and I think it's something we have to watch very closely. I think vaccines are very important. You and I have talked about the flu vaccine numerous times over the years. And, this year's flu vaccine was about 30 to 40% effective in preventing serious illness and hospitalizations. So I think it's still very important that we promote the flu vaccine because it prevents deaths. This has been a very active, very, if you want to say, very heavy flu season. There have been a lot of hospitalizations. 86 children have died in the U.S. from the flu. So the flu is a deadly virus. So the flu vaccine is very important. So it is concerning when these meetings get canceled.
Yeah, if we don't turn things around, Dr. Shatrareddy, you're going to see more patients a little bit more often next year.
You got it.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good weekend, all right?
You too, Chesley.
All right, plenty more stories on the way. This is The Take on 11Alive Plus. We're back. Welcome back. A study from Wallet Hub says grocery prices, have risen 25% since 2019, and Georgia ranks 30th in the nation for how much we spend on groceries. Joining me now with ways to save is Doug Bauman from the Emory School of Business. All right, Doug, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Glad you're here, my friend. We all know that eggs are expensive. What other high dollar items should we be looking out for right now?
Absolutely. Protein as well, but eggs are certainly the top of everyone's mind these days, and will be for the next few months.
Wow. Okay, let's talk about savings. What's the best strategy to tackle my next grocery run to the store?
Yeah, well, most people realize the importance of creating a list, and that's obviously number one. Number two is if there's a loyalty program, you better be a member of that loyalty program to get the discounts. After that, more nuanced, shopping multiple retailers. Frugal shoppers often will do part of their shopping at a hard discounter like a Lidl or Aldi, and then the rest at more of a full service grocer like a Publix or Kroger. Adjusting your sort of promotion spending or looking for promotions. For example, if you haven't seen Coke on end aisle in a couple of weeks, you're sort of trained to know it goes on pretty frequently, and so maybe you slow down a little bit and then buy it when it's on sale. And if your budget can allow, then you'll stockpile. Private labels, obviously, frugal shoppers are taking a closer look at private labels as our budgets get stretched. One of the interesting ones that we're starting to see, especially with younger consumers, is just something as simple as I'll type into ChatGPT, I got 4 items in the fridge or pantry, how can I make an interesting meal from that? And, in some ways trying to avoid wasting food. So there's lots of ways that consumers can think about looking to save money.
Yeah, getting AI involved. Hopefully you can end a debate around here, Doug. My coworkers kind of get on me about the fact that I go to the grocery store every day to get my meal. So not just, every day I hit the grocery store.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You certainly see that in like Paris or Japan, where
that's where I got it from, Doug. That's where I got it from.
Small apartments and your public transit, and you're buying it on the way home.
Is that a smart way to save, though?
You're a little bit of an outlier in Atlanta.
Is that a smart way to save?
It's, I guess if you're going with a list and you're willing to be flexible to see what's on sale, certainly an interesting way to think about shopping. Most people are a little bit more purposeful in how they're looking to save money.
Yeah, I started it because of a way to not be as wasteful. We're kind of taught to go and just stock up and stockpile, and a lot of that food goes to waste. So I wasn't thinking about maybe saving the money, but maybe being a less of a waster. But wanted to find out from you if that was a way to kind of save by buying every day.
Yeah, well, it's working for you. I guess it's, then that's all that really matters.
If you're telling me it's not, I'm going to stop. Is there any other advice you can share about saving money on groceries?
No, just the first two big ones obviously are, make a list and make sure you're a member of the loyalty program.
All right, got it. So if you're not a member of the loyalty program, maybe you want to get on that today, because do you see any light at the end of the tunnel as far as grocery prices coming down?
Yeah, so that's tough. After-tax eggs are on people's mind these days. It's as a percentage. The interesting thing is a percentage of after-tax spending, out-of-home purchases are going up, just because, yes, it's going up in the grocery stores, but my gosh, it's really going up in restaurants and fast food outlets and things like that. And so we're at a point now where for the average household, about 50% of their food purchases are now made outside of home. And that, you go back 20, 30 years, it was maybe a third, maybe a quarter.
Gotcha. All right, Professor Bauman, thank you for joining us today. Make sure you have a great weekend, huh?
Sure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. Back with my final take right after this. You're watching The Take. Welcome back. Blue Origin has a historic space flight launch this spring in Texas. Passengers will be all women. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, owns the space tech company. Passengers will include journalist Gayle King, music artist Katy Perry, Bezos' fiance Lauren Sanchez, film producer Carrie Ann Flynn, and former NASA rocket science Alicia Bowe, and also scientist Amanda Wynn. There will be no pilots on the plane, on the flight at all. Fully automated flight. It's only going to last 11 minutes. They'll get to see space from the windows and hopefully have some great stories to tell. That's pretty cool. All women on that flight. All right, before we go, my final take. Yep, federal job cuts hitting closer to home, even for me. Hundreds of weathercasters and other National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration folks were fired on Thursday. A lot of those were meteorologists who do local forecasting, weather offices all around the country. Some of those friends as well as colleagues. They do critical work to save lives. Keep in mind that NOAA also compromises the Storm Prediction Center, also the National Hurricane Center, where early warnings save not only lives but also property. If the current administration cares about protecting its citizens from disasters, from devastation from these natural disasters, I hope they will pause and reconsider. Thanks for joining us, folks. We hope you have a great weekend. Say goodbye to you with this moment of Zen.